Learning the Chinese Language. Everything you need to know about learning Mandarin Chinese from scratch by Rui Zhi Dong. Narrated by David Miller.
Chapter 1. A Brief History of the Chinese Language. Languages are complex creatures, and to try to understand them, we should always look at how they became to exist. First, it is important to clarify that while the prevailing language of China is called Chinese for simplicity's sake, this is actually a misnomer. On the one hand, what we know by the term Chinese language is, in fact, Modern Standard Chinese, 普通话, also called Mandarin. It was named after the word for official representatives, or mandarins, and is a reminder of the historical fact that this particular language at some point became the language of the majority due to its role as the language of the imperial court. On the other hand, Chinese language isn't simply one language, but rather a collection of dialects spoken in different parts of China. This can sometimes produce some rather bizarre situations where a person coming from southwest of China isn't able to understand a single word spoken by a Chinese northerner, even though they both theoretically speak Chinese. Due to this linguistic diversity, the notion of Standard Chinese was established, based mostly on the dialect of Chinese spoken in and around Beijing. Though for the cleanest version you should head north of Beijing, to the province of Heilongjiang, and specifically to the city Harbin. Since Mandarin is the language used in official and educational institutions, it is widely used all across China, although, of course, the degree of fluency varies. For many, Mandarin is considered more of a second language, learned alongside the local language of the area where they live. In Shanghai, for example, a large majority of the population could be described as bilingual. Shanghai variant of Chinese is radically different from Mandarin. Secondly, we should acknowledge the fact that Chinese language is an ancient one, and while the first inscriptions in Chinese language date to 3.5 millennia back, the language itself is certainly much older. We can only speculate how it sounded like all those years back, although attempts have been made to shed light on that subject throughout comparative historical linguistics, especially relating Chinese to Japanese, Vietnamese, and Korean languages. In any case, scholars nowadays usually classify historical Chinese as Old or Archaic Chinese, common during the early and middle Zhou dynasty, 1122 to 200.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?